Hello.
3, 2, 1, action.
We are 1 minute late. We were like scrambling around trying to organize the
space,
the room, organize our callers, such as the life of being on camera. So tonight, let's see, we have a lot to cover. We're going to be talking about how to build muscle and Purina, because that was this week's YouTube video.
About look at me with my hat.
How to build muscle. Oh, yes. This week's video is sponsored by Purina. We are going to be talking about love for our horses. We're going to be talking about training with patience and kindness. We're going to be talking a little bit about showing, and that's the agenda. Now you know, because you probably didn't know.
Because I just walked in cold.
Yes.
Well, not really that cold. It's warm.
So if you are listening to this on a podcast, do me a big favor and share the podcast with a riding friend. That would really help me out. If you don't know, we always make these into podcasts so that you can listen to them on the go. And hopefully you enjoy listening to these podcasts while you are driving to the barn. Hey, look, you already have a compliment. They say your husband is a hunk.
Thank you.
Yes, Craig. He is. And he also cooks. We're going to be having some grilled halibut for dinner tonight after the Facebook Live. So if anyone would like to come, please come. Okay, so first thing on the agenda tonight is building muscle. And the reason that came up is because of my horse, Harvey. So if you don't know, Harvey's my Grand Prix horse. Earlier this year, he had 2 surgeries. He spent a month in the hospital. 2 surgeries and 3 trips to the hospital.
And a surgery 2 years before that was unsuccessful.
Yes. Anyways.
He ended up very skinny.
All of his muscle. Like, he didn't even look like the same horse. It was
his face.
His face. But it was it was really sad. Like, all of the muscle at the top of his neck, all of the muscle on his butt, like all of his back.
That nice round muscle butt.
Yeah.
That was all gone.
Yes. And it was very sad to see all of his muscle go away. I know some of you, let me know if you are rehabbing a horse or if you've had a horse with an injury, but it's always like, it takes so long to build the muscle and then it feels like it just goes away so fast. So what's important with coming back from rehab or building muscle is 2 things: nutrition and training. That combination. It's just like us. We were just talking about. I've been going to the gym a lot.
I've stopped hurting recently, so I started swimming recently.
Yes, we just got back from the gym, but it is that combination of you have to go to the gym and you have to work out if you want to build muscle, but you also have to eat the right food and have nutrition. So for Harvey, I like Purina products. This is my Purina advertisement for the night. One product that I really like from Purina is Super Sport. And that's like a protein booster, which really helps to put the muscle on their top line. I started feeding that to a few of my older horses, and it made such a big difference. We put Natasha and then one of our other older horses on it, and it's like amazing the difference in their top line. So check out Purina. The other thing is training. So how do you rehab a horse? What are your tips?
Be careful. Rehabbing can get exciting.
I'm going to open the window. It's like hot in here. Are you sweating?
What do you think?
Okay, talk to the camera.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It is hot in here. The rehabbing can get kind of tricky because you can't really work off the steam. So gotta stay safe. You didn't have to trank him at all in the beginning, did you?
No.
He was really well behaved.
Yeah, because what was nice about Harvey was that he didn't have like a tendon or a leg injury. He had an issue with his pull. And so I actually was able to turn him out first. So he wasn't on stall rest, because that is really hard when your horse is on stall rest.
That adds another level of excitement.
Yeah. So safety first. Absolutely.
And then after that, follow your vet's protocol, obviously. I mean, we're pretty familiar with it. You trot the straight lines, you walk the corners, you do that 2 minutes in each direction and build. And now this is obviously when you have soft tissue injuries. You've got a different thing. He was just a lack of fitness.
Yeah.
And so then even there, though, you don't want to overwork them, because if you overwork your horses, you don't have the musculature to support the exercises. now you will get a soft tissue injury.
Yeah.
Because then the ligaments and the tendons will start to take the load where the muscles should, but you don't have any muscles. So the muscles get tired, you get fatigued, and then you get soft tissue injury. So,
but in general for rehab, lots of walking, gradually increasing it. I think that that's like really important, that you add on a few minutes every day. You don't want to just like go out and do 30 minutes.
Test, right?
Yes. And then listen to your horse. I think that's always the best thing. Like if they feel tired or stiff, you know, take a day, and then build up from that. The other thing is, in general, with rehab, you want to stick to like big circles and straight lines. You don't want to do tight circles.
Right, because they're not ready.
Yeah. No tight circles, no lateral work until your horse is really strong in their musculature again. Because that's where, like, for example, with Harvey, he could have done all the Grand Prix stuff, but he didn't have the muscle to support that. So if I'd have gone out and started doing like really steep half passes and pirouettes,
he'd get hurt.
Right.
I mean, he'd just get hurt.
Right. Just like you. If you haven't gone to the gym for a while, you have to like build up
do you
gradually.
Want a funny story?
Yes.
So when I was taking my Taekwondo, we had a noon class, and this guy came in, and he just went hard. He just, you know, I don't know what he was thinking exactly, but it was a black belt class. Like, he was not fit enough for it. Yeah, he was in a bad way at the end of that hour.
Yes.
He was in a bad way. So, note to self, take it easy.
Yes, gradual. Because if you hurt yourself or if you hurt your horse,
you're not going to be riding.
Yeah, and you're going to go way back. Levi is doing his after dinner dance. If you're wondering, he always like rolls around and is so happy after he has dinner.
He likes to rub himself, except if we're in the other room, he'll do it on the bed. But okay.
Okay, so that was the first topic. The second topic is, of course, it has been kind of a difficult week, I would say, for our horses and our horse sport. And I think it always goes back to your values and your why for why you have horses. For me, I love my horses. I love to ride. I love to see them. I love having them in my life. I feel like they're magical creatures when you think about the fact that we can ride them.
And they let you.
And they let us, right?
Because zebras don't let us. Horses let us because they're very noble.
Yeah.
And you know, forming that bond and making that relationship with them, and that they're happy to see me when I come to the barn, and they snicker, and that my presence helps calm them. It's very gratifying, that.
Yeah.
I remember you saying once when we first met, you were like, "You're so big and you're so loud, and the horses
love you,
and the horses all come down around you." Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah. So love your horses, appreciate your horses, be grateful to have them in your life. And then I think that when we train our horses, we need to be very mindful of how we train them and the approach that we use. And I rode a few years ago, I was taking a clinic from Juan Matuda. He's a Spanish trainer. And I was riding Kensington. Kensington's the beautiful chestnut that you see in a lot of my videos.
As opposed to the other really pretty chestnuts.
Yeah, okay, I have two beautiful chestnuts. But anyways, so I was riding Kensington. Kensington was 6. And I was like, oh, you know, I want to do the FEI 6-year-old class with him. And Juan was like, well, you know, he's a little bit behind for his age, and he might not be ready to do the 6-year-old class this year. And then he said to me, and I'll never forget, he said, because you sit on top of your horse, your job is to protect your horse. And that really kind of touched me in the sense that it's true. Like, we sit on top of them and ask them to do stuff, and it's our job to protect them and to treat them with kindness. And I think that it's always important to remember that.
Because they don't have a voice. You are their voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is that training horses is not always easy. It takes consistency. It takes patience. It takes having a system. It takes going back to the basics.
And there are boundaries and there's consequences. I mean, you see parents with their free range children and they're disobedient in restaurants and they scream and they have temper tantrums, but it's free range parenting. And that's not a solution either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can't do that. But I think it's always important to remember and to ask yourself, why? Like, why isn't this working? And is there another way that I could go back to something more simple or go back to something more basic or take a minute and regroup and explain it to my horse in a different way? Because in general, horses want to do what you ask them to do. They're way better than humans.
They're not malevolent. They don't lie, cheat, or steal. They're not trying to get over on you. They're not trying to test you. It's not in their brain to do that.
Right.
All they want to know is that they're going to be safe. And if they're safe, they'll make you happy.
Yeah. So if they're not doing what you're asking them to do, is to take a minute and kind of get away from the situation for a moment and figure out why, and figure out, can I go back to something more simple? Can I go back to something more basic? And explain that to my horse. And always remember the importance of the release and the importance of the reward, that when your horse tries for you, even if it's not exactly what you want, when they try for you, you tell them good and you pet them and then you repeat it again. And that's really how we build that try and that relationship with our horses. And one thing, since many of you are in the training scale masterclass right now, is the training scale gives you that framework. It is that basic foundation of something that you can go back to when you're having an issue with your horse, that you can go back and you can think about the training scale and you can use it to solve your problems. So
I'm trying to make sense.
He's squinting and trying to read the comments.
If Karen Allison could explain KU, what is that?
Thank you.
Yes, and the K?
Thank you. It's a typo.
Oh. Never mind.
Never mind. It's a typo. It's gonna be fine. But today, for example, I was riding a horse and there was like people in the bushes doing weeding, right? And so there's all this like ruffling around in the bushes, and
Helior saw them too.
Yes, the horses usually don't like that.
Little sideways.
Right. And so as I was riding, like I could feel the horse was distracted and he was getting tense and he was getting nervous about it. And in those moments, you have to take a moment and you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to react to this situation in a way that I can help this horse? And with that horse in particular, he's a horse that if I try and pressure him through a situation like that, it doesn't work. So walk for a minute, go to the walk, let your horse go on a loose rein, breathe, take a minute, and then take up the reins and start over again with something a little more simple and a little more basic.
And 10 feet farther away.
Yeah. And it worked.
Because you just need the distance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, horses are, okay, there's that. And at this distance, I'm safe. And then you put them closer than that. And then they're not so happy.
Yeah.
And so if it's circle after circle, nothing happens. You can keep working your way closer and closer.
Yeah. And like today, Herman was riding a horse. You were working on the changes.
Yes. And
right.
you helped me.
Yeah. You got a few good changes.
And I listened. She always says I don't listen, but I listen.
But when you're teaching the changes, the flying changes, that's another instance where it's easy to get frustrated because you're like, I just want you to go from one lead to the next. And why don't you understand? And that's where it's so important to just go back to the basics and just go back to walk and canter and walk and canter, because adding force or getting frustrated, it doesn't work.
And to
it
answer,
doesn't help your horse.
That is Trey Parker's. What is that? Anyway, sometimes you just need to let your horse canter off. Let some steam out of the pot.
Yeah.
Right? You it's like a pressure cooker. If you put too much pressure on it, oof.
Yeah.
So, a light contact, a light 2-point, and you just go canter around the arena 2, 3, 12 times. Let some of the steam out of the pot.
Yeah.
Remember, I did that a lot with the mare that
Frankie.
Frankie, yes.
Yeah.
And it just changed her world. It just changed her world.
But that's also where it's really important that you understand the way the horse's brain works. And that's something that I teach all the time in my programs. Like if you're in strides with me or if you're in the training scale, I do theory lectures. And one thing I always bring up is, how does the horse's brain actually work? Because it doesn't work like our brain. They don't have a prefrontal cortex. They can't reason.
And they're food.
Right. They're prey.
They're prey. We're predators. And that's what it is. To be around horses, we have to see the world the way they see it.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to see it the way we see it. We have to see it the way they see it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what I think or what I believe. It's what the horse tells me. And I tell that to my students all the time. I don't care what you think, right?
Yeah.
What's going on? And as a friend of mine tells me all the time, reality is an acquired taste and it's not for everyone.
Okay, so here's a funny story. I was riding a horse this week and I was cantering and he stepped on his shoe, ripped his shoe off. His shoe flew up
I saw the
and
video.
hit him in the crotch. And I heard this popping noise and I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? But anyway, so my client was filming it, right? And so she's filming and he's cantering along and all of a sudden you see the shoe fly up. It hits him in the belly and his reaction was so fast. Like in a millisecond, it hits his belly and he jumps up in the air.
Yeah.
And like manages to not step on the flying shoe. Like it's amazing to see
how he just
the
got
quick
around,
reaction time.
and he doesn't see it, right? Because his eyes are over here. The shoe is coming off underneath him. He just kind of felt it and knew where it was and moved himself around it.
Yeah, it was amazing. But that's also horses' instinct, right? Their instinct is to react that quickly because that's what keeps them safe. And that's
apparently they want it posted.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll have to post it.
You'll have to ask the owner.
You should follow me on Instagram. I post a lot of like more day-to-day training on Instagram at Amelia Newcomb Dressage. If you don't follow me yet, follow me there. But I think that that's important to remember is sometimes your horse will spook or react to something before you can even perceive what has happened. Have you ever had that happen where they like spin around or spook at something?
Well, they know it way before because the sense of smell. And yes, I did know that about Trey Parker. He's very, very funny. But I was just Trey Parker's bitch. I don't know who that is.
Okay, let's not pay attention to the comments as much. Since you can't see any of the comments anyways.
I'm squinting.
So, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is there is a trainer who he used to come in clinic in California a lot named Morton Thompson. And Morton is one of those people that you meet that's just like really a true horseman. And Morton was the first person that I really saw teach a horse how to piaffe without force and without pressure. Did you watch him work very much?
Yeah, and then he took me aside. He showed me the video.
Yeah,
and it's so thoughtful.
It's so thoughtful and so soft and so like slow the training. So when Morton first came to California and I watched him work, he worked the horses a lot in hand and he taught them to lift their legs from touching them with a bamboo stick. And it was so slow and so boring. You would sit there and you would watch him and he would like lightly touch the horse and just touch and like just be so patient and so methodical. And then the horse would lift his leg and he would use his voice a lot to reward them. Like he would really reward the horse with his voice and then let the horse think about it and then start again. And it seemed like he wasn't doing anything. You would watch him and you were like, can we just hurry this along? Like, can't you just get to the point? And then you'd come back 45 minutes later and the horse would be piaffing.
Because the horse understood.
And before that, whenever someone would come to try to teach my horse to piaffe, it would always be this pressure, right? It would be like, let's just chase him with the whip and hold him in front and put pressure on them. And when I saw Morton work and teach horses that way. I mean, I'd done a lot of natural horsemanship stuff before that, but it kind of brought home that point of thinking, is there a better way? Is there a way that we can teach our horses with kindness and understanding and simplifying it and breaking it down rather than adding pressure? So.
And now his rider is doing quite well.
Yes, he trains Jessica and Brenda.
Yeah.
So, anyways, those are the lessons from this week. I think it's always important to keep up your education and keep learning, because that's what makes you a better horseman for your horse, is learning from people and getting help and having perspective. And I always, when I get frustrated, I ask Herman, I'm like, can you please help me, because I need help. And I don't know, sometimes when you're in the moment or when you're on the horse, you can't see what's going on, or you don't know what to fix, or you just need someone there to assure you.
You don't really know what we all have an emotional response to what the horse is doing, right? And if we don't know what we're doing in that moment, it's always nice to have an outside perspective and go, hey, you're doing this. This is what your body's doing. Here's where you are. This is where the horse is.
Yeah.
And then you can just make an adjustment. Obviously, it's easier if you're teaching somebody who already knows how to ride.
Yeah. And I think it's important to let me know in the chat, actually, when you start having an emotional response, what do you do to reset that when you're riding? Because I think that that's really important too. When you feel your emotions start to take over, whether it's fear or frustration or, embarrassment or whatever emotions come up, that usually doesn't serve you well in the saddle.
Yes, it doesn't.
So what do you do when you start to feel that way?
Right. She said it. Breathe. You just
breathe, take a walk break.
So that's in Pajaski's book. He says, one moment of rough riding will undo 6 months of training. And so
you should say that again.
One moment of rough riding will undo 6 months of training. That's out of Pajaski's book. And so he says that it's just better to get off and come again tomorrow.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to say, today's not my day. I'm not feeling it. My horse isn't feeling it. I'm going to get off.
Because some days are better than other days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the truth of the world, right? Some days are better than other days.
Yeah. Yeah. Or go back to something more simple. Go back to, I always think it's good to have like a group of exercises or even just groundwork, something that you can do and that you can go back and that you can do that well, right? Even if it's just like walking a serpentine or walk, trot, walk transitions or groundwork, leading your horse. Go back to something that you can be confident in and that you can end on a good note and that you can train yourself out of that emotional response. And I think that's a life lesson.
Training. I mean, but that is part of training.
Yeah.
It's and you talk about it all the time. 90% of this gig is mental.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's 90% of life, right? If you get up in the morning and you say, I'm going to have a good day. This is going to be a great day. You're going to have a good day. If you get up in the morning and you're like, oh, I've got this wrong and I have to do this and I have to do this, then you're going to have a bad day.
If you say you can or you say you can't, you're right.
Yes. So anyways, last thing on our list is showing, competing. Is anyone here showing, competing? We had a great guest speaker in Strides last night, and Strides and Training Scale. We had a judge come on and do a little guest lecture, which was really interesting. And she was talking about the training scale and how the training scale applies to judging. So Herman's going to go look for the book. He's going to go look for Pajowski's book because that's definitely a good one. But I think it's always important to remember that even if you're showing, pretty much every single level and every single test is based on the training scale. So when you look at your test and it says the purpose of the level, it always says that the horse demonstrates correct basics. The correct basics are the training scale. So rhythm, suppleness, connection, all of that is super, super important. Don't get obsessed with riding the test patterns. You have to focus on the basics.
Yeah.
And now Herman's going to talk about his all-time favorite book, which you all should get. You have to say it because they won't be able to see it.
Okay, it's The Complete Training of Horse and Rider, The Principles of Classical Horsemanship, Aloha Spajaski.
Oh gosh. Hang on. I was trying to type it in the chat. The Complete Training of Horse and Rider. I'll type it in the chat. Why is that such a good book?
It's it's where that's where we all take our book back to. This is considered the grandfather. He is considered the grandfather of modern dressage. So
the grandfather of modern dressage.
He was the trainer at the Spanish School of Riding in Vienna there. I think he retired in 1972, and then he came to New York for a little bit. Yeah, somebody wrote it well. Oh, that's you. You wrote it.
Yes.
You're the host.
I wrote it. So anyways, you should all get that book and definitely keep learning. I think that's really the best advice. We all want to be
better than we are, and we owe it to our horses to be better than we are.
Yes, well said. So that's the lesson of this week. Keep learning, love your horse, get help when you need it, and love, kindness, compassion, understanding, mindfulness, all those things. Life lessons from this week. Alrighty, everyone, we're going to eat our halibut for dinner. Thank you for watching. If you are showing this year, there's a link either above or below this video with my competition guide. So that will give you some good tips to help you out at your horse show. And we will see you